All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is our Microsoft Ignite session provided by Worldwide Technology. Today's session is around from hype to impact, transforming business with Microsoft Copilot and agents. I'm here. My name is Joe Berger. I'm the Vice President of Digital Experience. I'm honored to be here with my good friend, Craig. Craig, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, Joe, great to be with you. I lead the AI solutions at SoftChoice, which includes delivering a lot of Copilot services to our customers.
And we're really excited about this topic today to talk about Copilot and how we've seen organizations adopt it and sometimes struggle with adopting it. We can talk about some of the ways that we've helped them do that. So let's jump right in. Craig, why don't we first talk about the power of AI in the organization and where you're seeing it kind of help the employee experience?
Sure. And Joe, as you know, AI isn't self-aware yet. It's still used by people. And so we say, hey, it's used by employees to unlock human potential and also by customers and transforming their customer experience. And in both cases, they need to modernize and secure their data. Today, we're going to focus on, well, how can you really use Copilot to increase the productivity and quality of work of employees?
Yeah, and this is something we're really excited about with Worldwide Technology and SoftChoice around really enabling that workforce to take advantage of these tools and become more productive with them. So as we get into this, let's talk about this notion. I think a lot of people out there have heard of around agentic, but that's kind of still, we're getting to agentic, but we got to start somewhere. And let's talk about this notion first around just securing, AI and access and getting it going off the ground with the organization.
Yeah, certainly. And with Copilot, there's different places where people have issues and are looking to get benefit. Often it's, well, they need fast, secure AI. They often want to deepen productivity by transforming their workforce and how they work with AI. And as you said, hey, let's get real about what does it mean to be agentic. I think an important starting place, though, is let's talk about what does it mean to have fast, secure AI and why that's an issue.
So let's get into that. And, I know when we meet with a lot of organizations, one thing that we're finding over and over again is this notion of shadow AI, right? The employees are going out and using more consumer-grade AI tools, ChatGPTs, Geminis, and so forth. And obviously that does expose a lot to the organization from a security and policy perspective. What are you seeing out there as it relates to some of these tools and the adoption of it?
That's exactly right. And it's fascinating with technology. It's often consumer adoption first, and then they want to bring it to work because it's been useful for them. The issue is if it's a public AI assistant, there's the risk of putting corporate data there. And so what we advocate to customers is there's an option for your entire organization to have that AI assistant functionality in an enterprise safe environment, which is Copilot Chat. And for many customers, there's no license cost itself. So that's why we say it's fast, because you don't need to worry about procurement and figuring out exactly what budget to draw. So it's important to start there. And that's what we suggest for customers.
Now, as we talk about Copilot, I think many organizations out there probably have Copilot already today. They've got it in their enterprise licensing. They've got it in pilots. Why hasn't it been generally adopted everywhere?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. And, even with Copilot Chat, it's important to bring that change to the organization. They want to say, well, why should I use this? Why can't I use the application I use at home? And so even though the licenses might be free, we still advocate you need to bring a bit of change management so that people actually start using it. And with that, we've seen it be much more successful rather than just giving out Copilot Chat to the entire organization.
And I think that's such a big point. And we've seen this with workplace technologies over the years. Just because IT puts it out there doesn't necessarily mean it's getting used and they're getting the cost benefit of it. And so you kind of mentioned this notion around adoption and change management. Let's talk about some ways that you've seen this work and some of the outcomes that you get with it.
That's right. And because people have a license, that doesn't mean they're going to get all the value of AI. And so what we talk about is really deepening the productivity by focusing on transforming work. And usually that's department by department, because you would think about, well, how can we do HR differently? How can we do sales differently? How can we do marketing differently? And when you approach it from transforming work and then building out your Copilot adoption strategy, you get more benefit.
Makes complete sense. All right. So as we talk about Copilot, I think one of the things that kind of creates some confusion every now and then is this term of Copilot has been used many times, not just by Microsoft, by some of the other vendors out there with AI. Let's talk about the difference between Copilot and M365 Copilot.
Yes. And so we talked about Copilot Chat, and the good thing is it's not connected to your Microsoft data. So if you have concern that perhaps there's document permission issues,
maybe their data policies aren't in place, and
companies won't be exposed to that.
Yeah.
And so that's why
always a big concern.
That's why you can move quickly.
Yeah.
Now, the downside is you're not getting the value of being connected to the Microsoft Graph and everything else. So once you feel that you have a good security posture within your document environment, you can increase the value by moving to M365 Copilot, which connects you to all that data and documents. And as many people have heard, AI is fueled by the data, and that's how you get more value out of it.
Makes complete sense. So as we talk about this notion of productivity and getting into Copilot Studio, let's start talking about some ROIs and productivity gains that we're starting to see here. So I think we've said before, productivity, time saved, it can increase value for the customer. But what are the challenges of actually rolling out M365 Copilot? We've done this time and time again with customers. What have you seen makes it difficult for organizations to roll this out?
It's amazing how it's pretty consistent, some of the disappointment with M365 Copilot.
Yeah.
Meaning, hey, we gave some licenses to people. We did a lunch and learn. We're not sure we're seeing the results. Yeah. What you need to change from a mindset perspective is it's about transforming the way that you work. And any transformation requires executive sponsorship. You need that head of marketing to say, team, we're going to be doing things differently. You need to be comfortable that, as we talked about, things are secure. Now, because you have access to the Microsoft Graph, you get access to lots of information. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, though, there might not be information attached within the Microsoft Graph. So people want to integrate that. That can sometimes be a barrier. And then finally, it really is around adoption and change management. So once you have the executive sponsorship, how do you bring people along to do their work differently?
Agree. Yeah. And I think that executive sponsorship is so crucial. I know even internally here, probably our biggest supporter of our AI initiatives is our CEO. He's completely on board. He has weekly calls on this topic, but it really has to do with that top-down approach driving these initiatives throughout the organization. So, as we talk to customers about kind of going through this and getting that adoption and change management, what's a proven methodology that you've seen being used that seems to work over and over again that helps organizations get through this?
Yeah, here's the good news. AI is new and changing rapidly. People are still the same. So adoption and change management that we've used for years, at Soft Choice, 15 years ago, it was for Cisco phones. How do you set up your voicemail? Yep. Those methodologies that have been in place apply to AI. And so you want to make sure, what's the vision and measurable outcome that you want from this technology. Do the proper rollout, but also it's not, one and done. It's how are you going to measure and sustain? And so when we've applied adoption change management that's been around for a long time to rollouts, it's been really effective.
And this methodology works across all business segments, all, small to large. It kind of seems to resonate every time.
Absolutely. It's scalable, and you might do things differently, but the concepts apply.
The same method over and over again. That's perfect. So then as we talk about this, let's get into a specific use case or department. I know the Soft Choice sales team, great example here. You all have used this methodology internally. So why don't you talk about how you've rolled this out internally to the sales org and what you've seen?
Sure. And we often like to be customer zero.
Yeah.
And SoftChoice has to pay for licenses just like everybody else. So we wanted to make sure that when we were moving to M365 Copilot, we were getting the value. And we treated it like helping transform the workforce. So I acted as the salesperson or solution architect. I called up Jeff Knowlton, our SVP of sales. I didn't talk about Copilot. I said, Jeff, tell me how your organization works and some of the problems that you face. And you can see, the problems that are listed here are common to many sales organizations. When we designed the program to roll out to about 20% of the sales force, because we want to do a controlled experiment, we did it to address some of these problems. And we got results. So we tracked the metrics, and we know that activity leads to results. And some of them included 66% more customer meetings that ultimately also led to the reps being over bookings.
And I think that's so important here, especially as you look at any department. It's really understanding the workflow, sort of that day in the life almost of that employee, as well as creating the metrics to start tracking here. And so why don't you share? I know you mentioned you're seeing more customer meetings per work, but what type of other metrics are you all tracking and some of the benefits that you're seeing?
Within your organization, the temptation is time saved, but as CFO, that doesn't cut it.
And we hear that all the time, productivity savings.
And it does save a ton of time.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting, though, is what business metric does it move? So when we work with organizations, we tend to say, tell us about an existing business metric that's really important to you. So in recruiting, that might be time to hire. And so we design around an existing business metric. Rather than bringing in new metrics into an organization is always an effort in itself. So depending on the department that you're working with, we have conversations around what is it like today for you, and how do you measure your business, and then measure there.
And I do think that is such a valuable thing to understand. It's really, how do you define the ROI? How do you measure against it over time? We hear this time and time again with organizations. Hey, I've got this top-down mandate from my executive team. I got to go adopt AI, but they don't really have the metrics in place to say, was it beneficial for doing that? And so I think having that mindset as you're looking at this and measuring all this over time is so important to these initiatives. Now, as we talk about AI, one thing that comes up a lot, it starts looking like automation. Automation in the workforce is not anything that new, right? We've been doing automation and RPA for a number of years. But what, in your opinion, makes AI so much different than just traditional automation projects?
Yeah, this time it's different. And when we think about traditional RPA, which has been around for a long time, it can be brittle. It requires a rules-based approach, and which can be very manual to construct. And if anything changes in the environment, the rules need to be updated and changed. And so it has provided benefit, but it can take a lot of effort to implement, and then a lot of effort to maintain. With generative AI and building agents through things like Copilot Studio, it can learn, it can be trained, and therefore you don't need to build out all the complex rules. It can kind of figure it out itself.
Yeah.
And it's more robust. So if there's some changes in the environment, it can detect that and either notify somebody to deal with the exception. So what we're finding is automation is now open to a lot more organizations because it's
not so rigid and
easier to put in place. It's not as expensive.
Yeah, no, I do think that is such a key topic here, especially as we talk about this thing around this new paradigm of the way that we work. I do think, as we start implementing a lot of these new workflows and use cases, and they get adopted more quickly, it really does start proving itself out that it isn't just automating legacy workflows, but it's really this whole entire new world for all of us. So as we talk about, for some of the considerations here for automation and AI, and how do we start getting into these new workflows, let's talk about kind of what you're seeing, especially around the implementation of some of these new tools.
Sure. And, you need to start with, as they say, sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the attention. Yes. And so when you dig into workflows, it's really making sure that you're finding something that if changed, would have business value, not just a single
Not
individual.
just change for change's sake.
Yeah. And often it's looking at, well, where do bottlenecks occur? Where are things slow down? And then especially if it's your first one, you want to make it as easy as possible. So find those data sources that you can integrate with rather than having to do custom ones are probably good guidance to get started. And then during the implementation, you'd want to make sure that you have subject matter experts, because sometimes, the knowledge is in their head, and you still probably want a human in the loop.
Yeah. Oh,
So
for sure.
what are those exception cases that, as the automation runs, can be surfaced to a human being?
It's funny too. One thing that we've seen time and time again as well around, you think AI are these big transformational projects, but it's really sometimes starting with the small, not so sexy workflows that really create the biggest business value, and it's how you drive the adoption fast. And so I think starting with kind of easier to consume type of workflows really does create sort of that flywheel effect, and it gets the projects going for you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've seen in the industry, like, people are eager to get results.
Yeah.
They're kind of done with studying. They want to get time to value pretty quickly.
100%. Perfect. All right. So, we've mentioned we've done this before. So let's talk about a case study that you've worked on, not necessarily just our own internal use of this, but what about some customer examples where you've really seen the business value take off for an organization?
Yeah. And this is what's fascinating with Copilot, is it's democratizing AI.
Oh, yeah.
It truly is. You hear Satya talk about it, but we've seen it in the field where smaller organizations are able to implement AI and don't need an army of data scientists. So one example is a medical devices company, and to put together a quote is really complex. You need to adhere to provincial regulations, you need to adhere to insurance policies, and then simply configuration of that of the device is complicated. And so we were able to wrap all of those in agents, an agent that understands the policies, the regulations, and how you configure things, and string them together to produce a quote. And, the savings are substantial. And there, was time saved, 95% faster. The reason that's important is that you get it to the customer quicker. There's also more consistency in producing the quote, because it's being moved through a system rather than a human in the loop. And this organization anticipates about a $3 million savings per year.
That's a tremendous ROI. Yeah. And that's great. And to your point around, it kind of levels the playing field 100%. It allows organizations from every size. They can, disrupt some of the industries that they're in, but it also allows them to compete at a different level. But it's such a great example here of kind of taking sort of what we mentioned earlier, sort of a basic concept, things around, response times and RFPs and so forth, and just streamlining it and making it easier to kind of get these things out there, and then get that $3 million ROI is so important here. Mm-hmm. So great example there. So as we wrap up, I know everyone's excited about Microsoft Ignite right now. What are the takeaways that you can share around what we've talked about today, and what everyone listening to the call today can go walk away with?
Yeah, absolutely. If you do not have an enterprise secure AI assistant for everyone, make that a priority, because Copilot Chat is there to put in place, and instantly gets you safe.
Easy way to get in, yeah.
And gets people using a consistent tool, because what you can then do is start adding in agents and having that collective knowledge. Mm-hmm. Think about, which department do you want to start with a workforce transformation? And really, two key things to look for: where is that executive sponsor who's willing to take the charge, and where, is there a business metric that you think you can move because of AI? And then finally, some of the more exciting stuff is looking at those workflows. And I completely agree with you. There's value in boring.
Yeah.
And not only does it save time, but we've seen people be thankful that they got that off their plate. So you can start thinking about the workflows that you might be able to automate. Perfect.
Well, Craig, thank you for taking the time with us today. Everyone, hopefully you've got some new insight out of this, and ways that you to deploy Copilot within your organization. We want to thank you on behalf of WWT and SoftChoice, and enjoy Microsoft Ignite. Thanks, you, everyone.